Hi guys, it's Nicole, and today I am so excited to share with you the last and final layout that I made with the 6x6. What is the name of it? So it's 20 sketches, all single page sketches for 6x6 paper pads. This is through Scrapbook Generation. I believe all of the sketches are designed by Allison Davis. And I kind of went in order towards the end. I started working basically whichever one was kind of calling my name. And I have to be honest, number 20 never called my name. I had to sort of force myself to do this one. I think the overall design of the sketch is just one that I already know is not something that I'm typically drawn to. And if I'm being completely honest, I just didn't have the time, energy, effort to really kind of dive into doing like a modification. So I did just decide to stick to the sketch as it is and just kind of be uncomfortable. I knew that because the sketch isn't my favorite, what I typically tend to do is I just don't pair it with like super favorite photos. There's nothing wrong with these photos. It's just a couple photos from my phone of when we got on the tram at the San Diego Zoo. Not the tram, the sky thing, whatever it's called. I think I called it a sky tram in my journaling. But the photos aren't the greatest, and I knew that they would be probably better printed smaller. So I just decided that this would be a good fit for this particular sketch. I also kind of think that I screwed myself a little bit with my paper choices. And I think it's just part of my process and how I tend to work. I sort of forget to check that I'm going to have embellishments that match my paper choices. I tend to just kind of work in sections. So, like here, I'm showing you guys this cute little, almost like rainbow B-side thing that I've got going on. I knew that I wanted to have 6 different patterns based on the sketch that shows like a 6x6 paper chunked into like a sunburst pattern. At this point, I'm literally just focused on tackling that sunburst, and so I wasn't really thinking ahead to when I needed to embellish. So all that to say that my end result isn't really what I had pictured in my mind, but again, it's one of those things where the photos aren't telling like a super important story. It was just sort of a little moment in a much larger trip. So again, it was just one of those. The sketch in particular just was one that I was not 100% drawn to, and that's okay. But, and I get comments a lot that people say, you know, you don't have to do the sketches that you don't like, and 100% I agree with that. I'm just weird in that when I take a sketch bundle and I say I'm going to run through it, I will do all of them. I will modify things that I don't like. Sometimes I will force myself to do the ones that I don't like because I know that when I get to the end, I will have learned something. Case in point, when I'm trying to figure out how to do these sunbursts, I was like, math wasn't mathing. It wasn't working out in my brain. And then I was like, hold up, let me go check her channel. And sure enough, she has a whole video on how to like neatly do sunbursts. Any other time I've done sunbursts, it's been just on like a smaller section of a layout, but with full size photos. And so it was definitely helpful to go and watch the video that was kind of specifically on this. So I followed along on the part where she was showing, I think it was a 6x6 or an 8x8 or something, but I followed along with that, and then I ended up just leaving the video on. And sorry, Allison, but I let her talk to me while I finished my layout, and I did pick up a couple other things. I'm not sure why I hadn't watched this video before. I think I just passed over it. I tend to watch like the ones where she shows like sketch support and stuff like that. So definitely very helpful on how to kind of tackle this sunburst thing. And it is a lot of work. It's kind of that old school like paper piecing vibe almost, where you're tracing everything and you're trying to keep everything in order. Now, I kind of wanted it to be like almost like a rainbow of B-sides. But I wasn't thinking about the fact that because I had 6 colors and then you repeat them twice, it was going to be too like, not matchy, but sometimes I don't like when the repeating pattern sort of mirrors itself. So I do, part of the way through this, I do decide to kind of start swapping out some pieces and changing the colors. There was a couple patterns that I made sure that I traced my template so that the final piece, the pattern wasn't running in like a weird way. I didn't have text paper, but that's like an example of what I would say that I try to make sure that however I'm tracing the template is to make sure that the final piece isn't upside down or sideways. So this is about the point where I start looking at it and I'm like, okay, I've got my first 6. Now when I start rotating around, it's going to be too matchy for me. So I just kind of started changing up the order, even following her template, even being super careful with my cuts. Mine still did not line up all that great, but I just kind of went back and basically cleaned up the outside edges of everything because I know that I'm going to have at least 2 photos and some like die cuts or title work going on the majority of this. So having the middle be messy, I was okay with that. And I think I just used like regular typing, like print paper to glue everything on so you can see I have a big gap and nothing lines up. And it was one of those things where I was like, this is why I don't do things like this because I can't line anything up. I get like flashbacks to the 2-page class where there was a bunch of hexagons and it took me 3 rounds, 3 separate background papers of lining those up and they still didn't line up. I feel like some people have a skill for that. I do not. It's okay. I know that I don't have that skill, so I get little tricks out of my pocket to kind of cover up what's not lining up, and I make sure that the places that have issues are going to be behind a photo. And I just keep trucking, keep going. My background paper is I don't even know. It's Echo Park. I think it's a Christmas line. I have a ton of it because I think I bought a pack of it at like Tuesday morning or possibly when one of the local stores went out of stock. I don't know. If I find a bunch of like good wood grain for backgrounds, especially for cheap, I will stock up on it. And to me, the wood grain fit the zoo theme. I think the other issue that I'm running into whenever I do pictures from our zoo trip is I'm kind of intentionally just using a hodgepodge of just random stuff. I have stuff that I've picked up over the years, newer purchases like the Simple Stories collection that came out probably a year ago. And then my mother-in-law who went on this trip with us, she already did all of her pages for this. So she gave me all her like leftover pieces. So I've pulled stuff out of there as well. So sometimes I run into issues where things don't match. And normally I don't care. But it's one of those things where it's like I know that there's not like anything I can go find in my room because everything that I have is pretty much kind of contained in 2 iris boxes that I've dubbed, zoo trip basically. So finally got my sunburst done. I think I changed up the sizes of some of my photos to take up a little bit more room. Once I figured out kind of what my game plan was, I don't use a ton of adhesive, but I do go ahead and attach the sunburst to the background. And basically I'm going to spend the next 3 days stitching this. It shouldn't take 3 days to stitch straight lines, but it's one of those things where sometimes I'll sit up here, I'll throw on an episode of a show, and I can get some stuff done in however long a show is. What is that, like 45 minutes? Sometimes I'll bring this stuff downstairs. Sometimes I'll throw it in my car and I'll take it with me because both of my pickups, I have to go sit in my car for like 20 minutes until my kids come out. So this was one of those things that I just kind of dragged it everywhere and stitched. Plus, I think the sketch had a depiction of like specifically where the stitches were going to go. And I think they all ended at the very edge of this 6x6 piece. And I didn't like that. I wanted them to kind of keep going because in my mind, it just felt unfinished. So I wanted to have it kind of extend past the 6x6 piece and have the overall sunburst design or theme take up more area of my background. Because to me, once I put those photos in the upper left-hand corner, things started to feel a little bit lopsided. And I knew that I wasn't going to put my embellishments around the starburst like she had shown on the sketch. I knew that I was just, that was one of the things that I wasn't liking. So I knew I was going to change that up. So I tried to keep in mind the things that I was changing and having everything feel like it all belongs together. And that's something that I kind of struggle with. So for me, extending the stitching lines, and then some of the sections I actually added like a third or fourth stitching line. I tried to make some of them extend like past the photos. Yeah. So I didn't record a lot of the stitching, like I said, because one, it's probably boring for you guys. Two, I tend to lean like away from my desk while I'm stitching, so I'm not even in frame, and I had been downstairs for like half of this. So originally in my mind, I thought when I got to this point in the process, I wanted to have the perfect embellishments appear before me, and I wanted to go around those two photos and have something blue on the blue section, something navy on the navy section, something orange on the orange section. Once I dug through everything, I quickly figured out that that wasn't going to work. And so I just started tucking things here and there. It's one of those things that I have learned specifically in my Creating with Collection series is I need to do a better job of really looking at product before I purchase it, because the marketing photos and the way that the 12x12 stickers are designed is they're designed to impress you and wow you, and everything looks great. Everything looks cohesive, and you're not really taking like a detailed look of like, okay, if I was going to work with this, what would I really be picking off of this sheet? Because it's real life application that I'm finding I don't like most of what's on the sticker sheet. So it's one of those things that as I shop now, and even when I shop like my stash, I'm more like fine-tuned in what I'm specifically looking for. And there's been plenty of like really cute collections that have come out that I have passed on because I really just kind of stopped and took a look at like the 12x12 sticker sheet and kind of picked through of what's causing me to stop and want to buy this. And after I look at it and start thinking of like real life usage, do I still want to buy it? So, and I think that's just because for me, I have a hard time just kind of putting like random icons on a layout. Like for me, that little cart with the balloons is super cute. In my mind, it doesn't fit this layout. And I think some of that is just color and some of it is the theme of that specific icon. So a lot of rambling to try to explain what I'm looking for a lot of times when I'm pulling embellishments. I absolutely love watching process videos where people just go ham with stuff. And it always ends up looking like so well balanced and so interesting. And it's always stuff that I would have never picked to go with those photos. And a lot of times I will stop and I will really look at somebody's video and be like, okay, what made them pick that? And can I kind of stretch myself a little bit to start using some things that I don't maybe love, but maybe I can find a way to use them to where I like them, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. Anyways, most of the stuff I did not attach until I got to this point because I kept moving things around. And then typically just the fact that I'm attaching stuff onto stitching, it doesn't tend to want to stick. So I wait until I'm later in the process to squirt some liquid glue underneath when I know things are where I want them to be. So, and I do take photos along the way, especially if I'm not attaching things. I hate when things wiggle around. Sometimes I'll take a photo and I'll come back the next day and rearrange things because maybe I've changed my mind, or looking at a photo of the layout as opposed to the layout itself, I can kind of see things a little bit differently and I change my mind. I decided not to do die cut title today. I really wanted to attempt to use some of the stickers and stuff. I think it was a Doodlebug die cut pack had the word zoo, so I really just tried to figure out if I could come up with a title using that, so I went with Zoo with a View. And this is the point where I feel like there's not enough embellishing on here, but I'm also not finding anything that I love or that I feel like really adds to the layout without it feeling overwhelming. So that's kind of the point where I say, it's okay, it's time to stop. Go ahead and put your journaling on and move on and be okay with it. So with that, I thank you guys for spending some time with me today. I'm going to film like a quick flip through of all 20 layouts together so you can see them together. And I will catch you guys hopefully soon with a workspace video.